Welcome to Mystic Realms Recap. Please like, share, and subscribe. Enjoy today's episode.
When Chen Ming saw this scene, he couldn't say he was angry, but there was a suppressed emotion accumulating. Since the day he talked with Bai Quan, everything the 14th Corps has done so far gave him the feeling that it was just pretending. Although it seemed that they had made a lot of preparations, and they did fight with Yu Hui, but they didn't do anything practical in the true sense. No contact, no plan, no action. Even Chen Ming only saw the fire of the spaceship explosion in space, and didn't even see the shadow of the rescue team and the rescue spaceship that should have landed on the planet. No, they seemed to have done one thing. When they couldn't beat Yu Hui and were ready to retreat, they fired 3 shots at Chen Ming, who was the rescue target. I have to say that this is really a top-level rescue. Even if Chen Ming, who has no tactical literacy at all, thinks there is a better way than the 14th Corps. That is, first contact him to ask him to provide some information, and at the same time be prepared to wait for rescue. Then the fleet of the 14th Corps directly raided the galaxy based on the information he provided, and dealt with the relatively loose azimuth fleet inside the galaxy as soon as it arrived at the galaxy through the jump. At the same time, the landing force was directly dispatched to land on the planet, find Chen Ming according to the coordinates, and quickly transfer to a cruiser-level spacecraft. Then a jump, the mission was over. If the action speed was fast enough, Yu Hui might not even react. But this time, the actions of the 14th Corps were very strange, as if their goal was not to save Chen Ming. Inexplicably, they clashed with Yu Hui's battleship fleet. Relying on the Yu Hui who had already run here and were controlled by him, Chen Ming could confirm that there were no battleship-level spacecraft in the galaxy. In other words, the several Yu Hui radiation-level battleships that were bombarding the 14th Corps were all jumped from other galaxies. But according to normal reason, it is normal for Yu Hui to prepare 1 or 2 battleships to provide support in various galaxies at any time. But Yu Hui had a total of 4 battleships in the entire battle. This was 100% caused by the 14th Corps delaying the battle for too long. But there was really no need for a rescue mission to have such a large-scale battle. Chen Ming really couldn't understand why this was happening. Chen Ming took a deep breath, thought about it, and decided to forget it. If he couldn't understand it, he didn't understand it. He didn't care about what happened to other people. He only wanted to do 3 things now: to find out who arranged the stupid plan, to find out who gave the order to attack him, and to make the people who did these 2 things pay the price. Chen Ming subconsciously wanted to write something new on his notepad in the computer of the iron ore. But he suddenly realized that the iron ore was gone. After suppressing the sudden irritation in his heart, Chen Ming could only remember these things in his mind. At the same time, he continued to read the contents of the black box. Let's see what happened to these 3 shells in the end that didn't destroy the Institute, and see how the iron ore was destroyed. At present, Yu Hui seemed to have no means to stop the Gauss shells that were already overhead. But Chen Ming is still alive now, which means that something must have happened during this period of time to prevent the Gauss shells from landing. Could it be that Yu Hui has some backup? While Chen Ming was holding such doubts in his heart, he saw the most unexpected situation happen. The iron ore, which had been paralyzed since the moment he fell into a coma, suddenly started to move on its own. Chen Ming's spirit was tense all of a sudden. Not only was he surprised, but also because of the tension and disbelief in Chen Ming's heart. The sudden movement of the iron ore seemed dangerous to him, because with his ability, even if he was in a coma, unless someone walked directly to the spacecraft and manually controlled the spacecraft with the electronic equipment and mechanical system of the spacecraft. Otherwise, any external means, such as hackers, would not be able to break through the highest authority he had. And Yu Hui obviously had no chance to get on the iron ore, and he didn't dare to get on the iron ore because of Chen Ming's ability. Not to mention the 14th Legion. What exactly caused this? Chen Ming frowned and watched the rest of the video. As expected, the iron ore was destroyed by the Gauss cannon of the 14th Legion in the end. In fact, Chen Ming had already made such a guess when he saw the iron ore take off, and the subsequent video recording simply confirmed this. Chen Ming didn't care much. Anyway, he kept these things in mind, and he would definitely take revenge if he had the chance in the future. Now, he still had to look for traces left by the iron or when it took such actions to confirm that there would be no safety problems with the spacecraft controlled by his ability. Chen Ming found the relevant content almost instantly. However, at this time he discovered that the series of commands to control the iron ore to act after he fell into a coma appeared inexplicably in the computer of the iron ore, without any source. It was the same as the remote commands Chen Ming usually gave to the iron ore. But at this time he had fainted. So, it was the iron ore itself that gave the order. At this time, Chen Ming suddenly remembered the situation in his dream when he was in a coma. Although he couldn't be sure of the specific time, he had a feeling. The time when the iron ore was destroyed happened to be the time when he inexplicably got on the iron ore to crush the person transformed from the giant nerve in his dream, even though the time in the dream does not correspond to the real time. Because when Chen Ming got on the iron ore ship, it was near the end of his dream. Outside, the iron ore was destroyed not long after he passed out of coma. But even so, Chen Ming still believed that these two things happened at the same point in time. Think about it this way and connect these two things. It's hard to say that it's because he controlled the spacecraft for a long time, and then the existence of such metaphysical phenomena as psychic energy caused the iron ore to have its own consciousness, right? Chen Ming thought about it carefully, but still wasn't sure about this idea. After all, there is a possibility that the nerve he saw before he fell into coma burrowed into his body. This triggers some of the body's defense mechanisms, allowing his subconscious to instinctively make some actions to protect himself even in a coma, such as now activating the iron ore. To be honest, it wouldn't be too surprising if something happened to a psychic being. Psychic instincts and so on are also acceptable. Even if he really thought this way, Chen Ming suddenly felt that it was entirely possible that the iron mine had its own consciousness. This could even explain what happened in his previous dream. The iron mine was destroyed outside, so the consciousness of the iron mine entered Chen Ming's mind along with his spiritual energy, appeared in the dream, and helped him crush that nerve. The more Chen Ming thought about it, the more he felt that it was possible. However, no matter how he thought about it, it was still too metaphysical. He had no theoretical basis to support such speculation. Unless, go back and ask your boss if there are any similar cases. There's no point in getting hung up here now. I can't go back in the dream, and I can't repair the iron ore after it's broken like this, let alone recover the consciousness that I don't know exists. What's more, both Chen Ming himself and the wreckage of the iron mine are on Yuhui's territory. Before you get out, thinking about this is just a waste of time. However, when Chen Ming just glanced at the wreckage of the iron mine that was collected by the afterglow, he did find something that could be recycled. For example, there are a large number of damaged armor plates, hull materials, and things originally stored in the storage compartment. There are also some devices. Wait, equipment? Chen Ming suddenly noticed the equipment that had been collected by the afterglow and was still intact when the iron ore was destroyed. But if he remembered correctly, not all the equipment on the iron ore had been modified by him. In other words, when these things leave the spacecraft, Chen Ming will lose control of them. But it's different now. Regardless of whether he has come into contact with all the equipment on the iron mine, he can now directly open the panels of these equipment and perform repairs, modifications, etc. on them. Could it be that he can control any device he comes into contact with at will? Chen Ming opened his eyes and looked at the psychic device where he was lying. Immediately afterwards, he actually opened the panel of the device he had touched. The name of this device is Chilling Nerve Extraction Device. Just like all the spaceships that Chen Ming once controlled, and all the things that once appeared on his spaceships, Chen Ming can modify it or directly control its operation through consciousness. What is this? A blessing in disguise? Not only has the spiritual power increased significantly, but there is even a new ability to directly control mechanical equipment like a spaceship. It's just that although Chen Ming can control the operation of the equipment, he still doesn't understand the working principle of the equipment, and he doesn't know the process and purpose of the equipment's operation. Without the assistance of a manual, he still couldn't use the device. The most he could do was press the start and stop buttons remotely. It didn't look like Yuhui would give him instructions, or he can only figure it out on his own. But Chen Ming can be sure of one thing. Sunset's purpose must be his psychic powers. because what they were doing before made him feel dangerous. It shows that Yu Hui doesn't care about his life safety, nor does he care about him as a person. All they care about is his spiritual energy. Therefore, looking at the name of this device, Chen Ming can actually guess it. The spiritual nerve is the source of psionic energy. After extracting the spiritual nerve, Chen Ming's spiritual energy was completely in Yu Hui's hands. The nerve that penetrated his brain before was most likely a spiritual enlightenment nerve. It's just that Chen Ming doesn't understand now. The effect of the equipment is to extract spiritual nerves, so why should he insert another spiritual nerve into his brain? This still seems to be a necessary step to start the device. Chen Ming thought about it and suddenly thought that this spiritual nerve seemed to be connected to the medicine bottle where it was placed. It was not supposed to break, but instead it broke after being stimulated and burrowed directly into his brain. If Chen Ming had not stimulated it before, it should have continued to maintain the connection with the medicine bottle, while getting into Chen Ming's brain and extracting Chen Ming's spiritual nerve. This should be considered a reasonable explanation. However, there is still a problem that bothers Chen Ming. Just take it out and then you can? The specialness of his spiritual power is there, so he can't transplant it to others, right? Let's not talk about whether the transplant is done casually and what is the success rate of the transplant. Even if it can really be transplanted, Chen Ming's spiritual power will be extremely dangerous to Yu Hui no matter who he puts it on. Since it's not good for anyone, then what is Yu Hui doing for this purpose? After Hui, these tin cans can't be used to transplant spiritual nerves, right? Or is there some special device that can directly allow a certain afterglow individual to indirectly control the Ling nerve through the device? But Yu Hui has a social structure similar to humans, and there are also high-level people. The upper-level Yu Hui relies on Chen Ming's spiritual power to control the lower-level Yu Hui. Is this really feasible in Yu Hui's society? Or is it that Yu Hui can brainwash his own people, so that the individual responsible for controlling Chen Ming's spiritual nerve can only think about Yu Hui's future? Chen Ming couldn't figure it out. After all, there were too many possibilities. And this is something that Yu Hui needs to consider. He has no time to think about what will happen after his spiritual nerve is extracted. Isn't this a mistake? Might as well think about something else. For example, how should he prepare a new way to escape from Yu Hui now? Chen Ming now has two options. One is to get a ship and modify it to have an unstable hyperspace channel jump engine. Then go up and make a random jump to see where destiny will send him. As for how this ship came, Chen Ming now controls so many Yu Hui individuals, and he can definitely get several ships by just thinking of ways. Speaking of which, Chen Ming suddenly remembered the Buffalo-class ship that Hui Huang gave him before. Although the iron ore was gone, he had never moved the Buffalo before and was parked outside the research institute. And it's not just the ship itself, there is also a lot of materials on the ship, as well as the prisoners of the 14th Legion that Chen Ming captured before. Chen Ming immediately took a look at the Buffalo and found that it was still parked intact outside the research institute, and there were no changes inside or outside the ship. Although they learned that the Buffalo was safe and the captives were not missing. But Chen Ming doesn't want to think about how to deal with these prisoners of the 14th Army now. The most important thing for him now is to consider a way to escape. It was impossible for Yu Hui to say that they could not see the Buffalo, but they did not do anything to the Buffalo. Maybe he didn't pay attention, maybe he forgot, or maybe he thought that an ordinary cargo ship didn't have the ability to resist. But the most likely possibility is that this Buffalo is a trap left by Yu Hui specifically to catch Chen Mingyu. In short, if Chen Ming wanted a safe and stable means of escape, then the possibility would definitely not be on this Buffalo, but somewhere else. Therefore, Chen Ming's second choice for escape path is still with Gamma Z. Chen Ming directly opened the panel of the controlled afterglow individuals and roughly counted the number of afterglow individuals he currently controlled. The number of these afterglow individuals has not decreased in batches, indicating that the afterglow he controls has not been exposed yet. However, Chen Ming did not see the alpha-level afterglow during the inventory. It was indeed forced outside the battle line on its way over and was destroyed by the offensive of the 14th Legion. In other words, the galaxy where the Crystal Crab planet is located now does not have an alpha-level afterglow sitting around. Afterglow will most likely make up for one when he looks back. After entering a galaxy completely controlled by Chen Ming, the alpha-level afterglow sent by Afterglow will definitely not be able to escape Chen Ming's clutches. However, it is not certain how long it will take Yue to do this. So if Chen Ming wants to leave quickly, he definitely can't bet his hopes on this. You still have to contact Gamma Z now. Chen Ming looked at Gamma Z and found that it was not in the galaxy where the crystal crab planet was located, but in another galaxy closest to this galaxy. Chen Ming directly asked it through his consciousness, "What are you doing?" Gamma Z was not surprised that Chen Ming suddenly contacted it, and replied seriously, "Ready to rescue you. Do you still believe I'm alive? I wouldn't believe you if you were really dead." Chen Ming was choked by Gamma Z, but what Gamma Z said was fine. If he dies, then his psychic powers will definitely fail. Now that there are no psychic restrictions and Gamma Z is free, there is no need to risk being killed by other afterglows to save him. Chen Ming continued to ask, "What are the specific plans?" Gamma Z immediately replied, "There are also alpha-level individuals in other galaxies. I am trying to think of ways to speed up the spread of individuals and forcefully create accidents to contact the alpha-level individuals in this galaxy. There's a lot of risk involved. But a cruiser class or above ship with a jump engine is the only possibility to rescue you." What Gamma Z said made Chen Ming feel at ease. At least it didn't need him to worry about it at all. As long as you understand, just ask if you need anything. New. Contact with Gamma Z is lost. Chen Ming continued to think about his current situation. Since Yu Hui's side has already broken up with each other, the plan to find a way to extract the spiritual nerve for the second time is definitely on the way. But for him, it seems that the stable escape plan from Yu Hui can only be placed on Gamma Z, who is trying hard. So what he still needs to do now is to save his life before Gamma Z completes its plan. After much deliberation, he finally had to study this device. At least when Yu Hui is causing trouble, let the equipment appear to be functioning normally so that Yu Hui won't be suspicious. But before Chen Ming did this, he suddenly felt that his mental power seemed to have changed again. Chen Ming closed his eyes and felt it carefully for a while, and found that the strength of his psychic energy was still continuing to grow. It was obvious that he had not done any exercise, nor had he received any mental stimulation. Just as Chen Ming was conducting a second check with some confusion, he suddenly discovered that the number of controllable spaceships on his panel had increased by 1, from 10 to 11. The changes in the panel confirmed that Chen Ming's feeling about the growth of his mental power was not an illusion, but that his mental power was really growing. And Chen Ming also immediately discovered the exact reason for his increase in mental power. In a sense, his current mental strength is not growing, but his body is adapting. Adapt to the enhancement of his spiritual energy and mental power after absorbing the spiritual nerve in reverse. That is to say, Chen Ming's mental power has actually increased a lot, but his body did not adapt to the increase quickly during the coma. That's why the current situation appears, which seems to be strengthening. Generally speaking, it's almost the same. In short, becoming stronger is definitely a good thing for Chen Ming. After Chen Ming had the initiative, he quickly adapted to this enhanced mental power. Then Chen Ming discovered that he had a new ability. It is the ability to create that he has always been obsessed with. Chen Ming no longer needs to use something as a template to achieve an effect similar to manufacturing through transformation ability. From now on, as long as Chen Ming masters the method of manufacturing, he can directly use mental energy and materials to create everything he needs out of thin air. Chen Ming immediately tried it, of course not on his own side. After all, he must have many afterglows staring at him now. So after thinking about it, he chose to do something on the pirate space station, on the engineering ship he had encountered before. Because at this time, the factory director and Lao Wu happened to be driving this engineering ship out on a mission. And there happened to be only 2 of them on this ship now, or in other words, only 2 of them dared to sail this engineering ship that Chen Ming had touched. Maybe he can also add a bald head. After all, he took the initiative to remind Chen Ming of the military's little actions before, and Chen Ming still has a certain affection for him. Speaking of the bald head, Chen Ming suddenly thought that he should express his feelings towards the bald head. After all, they took a certain risk to help him, so it would be unjustifiable for him to not show any sign of it. Before, it was because he encountered a lot of things all the way and didn't have time. Now that he is free and has remembered it, he has to make some compensation. It just so happens that Lao Wu is in charge of his card right now. He can just talk to Lao Wu later when the business is done. Chen Ming thought about it quickly and then directly took over the voice broadcast system of the engineering ship. Hey, can you hear me? The two people who were controlling the engineering ship were stunned for a moment, and they immediately realized what was going on. Xiao Ming, you are still alive. Yes, I encountered a little accident here, but I shouldn't die for the time being. When you look back, you should hear the news from the 14th Legion that the mission failed and that I am dead. So remember to pretend to be more serious and treat me as dead. The factory director asked with some confusion, is there an accident with the 14th Army Corps? If I had to say, my assessment is that it was not an accident, it was intentional. Chen Ming quickly explained to the two of them the situation he encountered, and then said, there must be a problem with the 14th Army Corps. But I will find a way to solve this matter myself. If they want to kill me, it will not be a problem that can be solved through normal communication. So you'd better not get involved. The factory director shook his head slightly and said, we have been involved from the beginning. Old Wu also casually echoed, as long as you start taking action against the 14th Army, we will definitely be the first ones to be implicated. Then what do you think? I don't have any ideas. We won't be afraid at all if the 14th Legion comes looking for us. What is this thing I haven't seen before? Chen Ming was silent for a while and said, thank you. But we'll talk about this later. I want to test my psychic abilities now. Are there any new features? Right. As Chen Ming spoke, he created a lightweight exoskeleton armor directly on the engineering ship. The mental energy consumption of the entire process is at least 5 times that of transformation. Ouch! Old Wu circled around the exoskeleton armor that appeared out of thin air a few times, and then started to touch it habitually. Chen Ming had no intention of stopping it, but instead let Old Wu put it on directly. And as before, while Lao Wu was wearing it, more modifications were made to the armor. The whole process went very smoothly, without any impact due to distance or being touched by other people. After the test, Chen Mingyu and factory director Lao Wu had a brief chat and ended the communication. After all, he still has important things to do now and doesn't have much time to waste. Just when Chen Ming ended the communication, a voice suddenly rang in his ear. Inside the institute, Mr. Chen Ming. Although it was a homogeneous mechanical voice without emotion, Chen Ming recognized it at once. It was a brilliant voice. Chen Ming did not expect that Hui Huang, who had not been seen for a while, suddenly appeared here. It seemed that it had escaped the attack launched by the 14th Legion to the galaxy where he was before. This was not a bad thing for Chen Ming. After all, he and Hui Huang were getting along relatively normally and comfortably. So he did not vent his accumulated emotions directly on it, but asked seriously, Hui Huang, what do you want to talk to me about? Hui Huang was very surprised at this time that Chen Ming could directly distinguish the different Yuhui individuals behind the same voice, but it did not dwell on it, and said truthfully, I have a new task to communicate with you. Oh. G3, who had a conflict with Chen Ming a few hours ago, disappeared, and Hui Huang, who had a good cooperative relationship with him earlier, came. Chen Ming knew what the mission Hui Huang was talking about was, but he still asked knowingly, what mission? Appease. Chen Ming sneered, pointed to the chilling nerve extractor under him, which was still running but would never run smoothly, and the shackles on his body, and asked back, are you trying to appease me? As soon as he finished speaking, the equipment under him stopped running, and all the shackles that were handcuffing Chen Ming were untied. As the psychic fluctuations of the equipment gradually subsided, Chen Ming suddenly realized at this time that the sense of danger that the chilling nerve extractor gave him had long disappeared completely. It may be that Chen Ming has already controlled the equipment, or it may be because the real source of danger is the chilling nerve. But now these are no longer important. Chen Ming can't let Yu Hui use this equipment on him a second time. Chen Ming rubbed his wrist, stood up from the equipment, and asked Hui Huang, you don't think I'm a fool, do you? No. You certainly have reason to suspect that we just want to delay time, and then conduct some bad experiments on you again. Chen Ming reached out and patted the extractor next to him and said, "But I think this is not an experiment, but something more dangerous. Unless you can tell me what the thing that got into my brain but failed to kill me is, maybe I can change my mind?" Chen Ming's words made Hui Huang silent for a moment. Obviously, it didn't have a reasonable reason to explain what kind of thing needed to be directly administered through the eye socket to contact the human brain. And the above arrangement obviously didn't allow it to tell the actual situation. Huang was extremely embarrassed at this time. It had clearly opposed the proposal to extract Chen Ming's psychic energy before. But its opinion was not adopted, and even the superiors kicked it out directly in the final stage of the task. However, now, after the plan failed, it needs to come back to help appease Chen Ming. Even if the plan went wrong, he wouldn't have to talk to Chen Ming. He could just collect Chen Ming's body. It understood Yu Hui's fear of Chen Ming's ability and their desire to master this ability. But it didn't understand how such a decision was made without considering the risks and consequences in order to achieve the goal. In the end, it even had to clean up the mess after being kicked out. But Hui Huang could only think about these things. All it could do now was to spit out 4 words after a long silence. "I'm very sorry." Chen Ming always felt awkward when he heard Hui Huang's apology, as if Hui Huang shouldn't be the one apologizing. At this moment, his mind suddenly flashed back to all the strange things that Hui Huang had deliberately shown some time ago. After thinking in silence for a while, Chen Ming made up his mind. He suddenly sighed and said, "Let's start with a lighter topic. To be honest, I have a pretty good impression of you. If you hadn't come, I would never have been able to have a good conversation with you, Hui, who wanted to kill me. But if we continue this topic, you and I might have nothing to say." "Okay." Huang Hui agreed decisively and asked, "Then where do we start?" "Let's start from here. Did you take the initiative to accept this task of appeasing me?" Huang Hui once again answered decisively, "No." "Oh? So is it a task that was directly forced upon you?" "Yes." "It's really surprising. Yu Hui didn't seem to have sufficient plans to deal with various possible situations. So in the end, he chose to let Hui, an individual that Chen Ming was very familiar with, to carry out the appeasement operation, which was unreliable no matter how you looked at it. I don't know what they were thinking. Maybe they just wanted to delay time with Chen Ming through Hui's existence? Just after Chen Ming was silent for half a minute because he was thinking about Yu Hui's thoughts, Hui Huang suddenly took the initiative to say, "Can I ask you some questions?" "Yes, but you have to wait until I finish asking." What Chen Ming said seemed very unreasonable. But now Yu Hui obviously did not have the ability to start the second spiritual nerve extraction process immediately. So they still had ideas about Chen Ming's spiritual power and did not want to kill Chen Ming now. Chen Ming's behavior of testing the bottom line was nothing at all. However, he did not continue to talk about these things, but mentioned something before. "What are you doing after I leave?" "I told you before that you should continue the previous task of looking after the galaxy and managing the colonies. The 3 colonies in the galaxy mainly produce mineral resources, and I need to allocate their output." Huang Hui really mentioned the mining field again. Then Chen Ming could actually try to ask it some suggestive questions. If Hui really has any special ideas, he should try his best to answer. But he has to take a few detours and make some cover-ups to hide these hints in the surface questions. It is best to ask a few more ordinary questions before starting the formal questions. So Chen Ming said to Hui, "I need to think about the problem. You ask one first." Huang Hui was a little surprised by Chen Ming's sudden release. After pausing for a while, he asked Chen Ming, "Are you injured? Do you need medical treatment? We also have medicines for injuries caused by psychic energy." Huang Hui asked a question that sounded simple, but in fact he was still testing Chen Ming's condition and wanted to find out his physical condition. Although Chen Ming was still quite envious of the medicine, if he dared to ask for Yu Hui, he would definitely dare to directly hit the snake with a stick and conduct a detailed examination on him to determine the medication policy. So he answered without thinking at all, "I am fine now. I don't need treatment." "Okay, it's my turn to ask. Huang Hui, I remember that the galaxy you were in before should have been attacked. Are you okay?" Chen Ming's question would expose the fact that he was still in contact with humans. But since Chen Ming can remotely control the spacecraft, Yu Hui, as long as he is not a fool, can guess that he has the ability to communicate remotely. Even if there is a limitation that the distance cannot be accurately controlled, it is always no problem to let the spacecraft gesture a few words in space. Communication is the simplest thing. It's just that Chen Ming has always behaved well. It seems that he really wants to join Yu Hui and has no intention of resisting. At least when Hui has not mentioned the details of Chen Ming's troubles to any Yu Hui. In Yu Hui's eyes, Chen Ming has such an image. Now, even if Yu Hui knows that Chen Ming really keeps in touch with humans, the impact is actually basically gone, and it is even a good thing for Chen Ming. Because Yu Hui couldn't let him go. After the first time, the second extraction of psychic energy would definitely be more covert and more difficult for Chen Ming to detect. Maybe Chen Ming was tied to the extractor again in his sleep. As for the human side, since the Gauss cannon had already bombed him before, they would definitely not come back to save him. But this is for Chen Ming. As long as Chen Ming made it public that he could communicate with humans and didn't say that humans would not come to save him, then Yu Hui had to consider the possibility of humans coming a second time. Because from Yu Hui's perspective, humans chose to kill Chen Ming when the situation was bad and they had no choice. Since Chen Ming didn't die, humans would either come to save him again or kill him again. There was no third possibility. Although in fact, humans didn't know that Chen Ming was still alive. As long as Chen Ming didn't take the initiative to spread the news that he was alive, humans would never come again, unless the purpose was somewhere else, such as Kletka. But Yu Hui didn't know this. Therefore, under the premise that Chen Ming took the initiative to tell them about this situation, they had to allocate some of their forces to guard against the human fleet that might appear again. This was also a little calculation of Chen Ming. The less power Yu Hui concentrated around him, the greater the possibility of his safe escape later. Hui Huang did not need to consider the problem in Chen Ming's words for Yu Hui as a whole. It only needed to answer Chen Ming's questions. I had been staying on that planet to control the operation of the galaxy before, and I did not actually install it on the spacecraft. When the human fleet launched a surprise attack, I called for rescue immediately and installed it on the ship at the same time to prepare for battle. But before I actually took off, our main battleship support had arrived. The human fleet chose to retreat. It seems that Hui Huang's luck is still very good. Chen Ming quickly accepted Hui Huang's answer and suddenly asked with some sudden inspiration, "So you are now at my place?" "No, I'm still in the original galaxy. Due to the large number of losses of our individuals, I need to urgently deploy the production lines of various colonies, and at the same time I need to clean up the debris of the entire battlefield. Now the communication with you is only remote communication." Chen Ming then asked, "In other words, you are still on the planet where I was before, in that industrial colony?" "Yes." "I see." As Chen Ming asked a few questions, the originally extremely stiff atmosphere between Chen Ming and Yu Hui did ease. However, Chen Ming also knew that Yu Hui must just want to delay time, and the specific way of delaying is actually not important. So he acquiesced to Hui Huang's chat with Chen Ming about various things now, as long as he didn't expose important information. But Chen Ming is also trying to delay time now. Gamma Z wants to expand rapidly in another galaxy, and it will take time to deal with the alpha-level Yu Hui who is in charge of the galaxy. Therefore, delaying time is also good for Chen Ming. The direction of things from now on will depend on the speed of preparation of Gamma Z and Afterglow. What are your arrangements for me in the future? If it is to return to the past, then there is no need to say it. I don't believe it even if you say it. Brilliance fell silent for a moment. Chen Ming also knew that this question would definitely not be answered. So he took advantage of the situation and said what he really wanted to say. "I feel a little uncomfortable here in the experimental area. Let's go next door to talk." "Good." Chen Ming walked out of the experimental area without any obstruction. I saw that the industrial area diagonally across from the experimental area was gone. There were only many robots cleaning up the remains of the building, and it seemed that they were preparing to rebuild. If it weren't for the iron mine, then the entire research institute and Chen Ming himself should be missing now. Through the original work area, Chen Ming could still see that the dome outside, which was smashed by the iron ore and penetrated by the Gauss cannon, had been repaired. Continue to maintain an environment suitable for human survival under the dome. But Chen Ming is now completely unaffected by these seemingly thoughtful small favors. After all, what Yu Hui did was like asking someone to have breakfast every day, but as he ate, he discovered that this person wanted his own kidney. No matter how much you eat for breakfast, it is completely incomparable to kidneys. No, to life. Chen Ming glanced at the robots in the work area twice before returning to the canteen in the living area. Then he suddenly saw a group of robots hurriedly running to the refrigerator room behind the canteen. What happened? Hui Huang immediately replied, "Your pet. It just destroyed the wall of the dining area behind the canteen and is currently eating." Xiao Shi had already found an opportunity to run away when Chen Ming was caught by Yu Hui. It is a product of Fan Chao's laboratory. It has strong survivability and excavation capabilities, as well as the ability to suspend death and sleep in emergencies. Let it roam around the institute at will without worrying about its safety. Therefore, Chen Ming had never deliberately looked for it before. Anyway, when Chen Ming was about to leave, Xiao Shi would definitely burst out from some corner. But now Chen Ming went directly to the storage room behind the canteen. Then he saw a fist-sized hole on the wall of the storage room that was originally completely sealed and isolated and not open to Chen Ming. When Chen Ming came here, the round pebble came out of the hole in a flash. Surrounded by several robots, he jumped onto Chen Ming's shoulder with a dexterity completely inconsistent with his body shape. It swallowed the last mouthful of fairy leaves, exuding psychic fluctuations in its mouth, and began to grin at the robots. However, the look of Xiao Shi determines that its grinning teeth are just showing off its cuteness. When those robots arrived here, they also stopped moving under the control of Hui Huang or other Yuhui individuals, allowing Chen Ming to take Xiao Shi away. Chen Ming returned to the front of the canteen and picked up a meal. But after seeing that the cup of fairy tree tea was missing from the meal, Chen Ming directly grabbed Xiao Shi and pinched him a few times when he realized something was wrong and wanted to run away. However, Chen Ming doesn't care too much now. After all, the increase in spiritual energy he gained from drinking fairy tree tea during this period is not as much as the increase in daily exercise. The tea with only a few tea leaves is just a supplement. It is completely incomparable to the increase in spiritual power after being assimilated and absorbed by Chen Ming. And now Chen Ming can even see the name of the meal in front of him directly through the panel because of the spiritual nerve. So it's just a refill of tea, and it's gone once it's gone. The most important gain is that he now has the ability to know the name of an item only through contact and no longer need to get it to the spacecraft. Even to put it simply, this ability would allow him to never have to worry about eating food with something hidden in it. Not to mention that Chen Ming still doesn't know how long it will take Yu Hui to prepare the second spiritual nerve. In the long run, it will only be half a month to a month at most. During this period, Chen Ming will only get more than 100 pills at most of tea. And the number of tea leaves that can make Xiao Shi become as round as he is now, with psychic energy fluctuations all over his body, is definitely more than 100. After picking up the meal, Chen Ming casually found a seat in the canteen and sat down. Xiao Shi, who was placed on the table by Chen Ming, suddenly carefully spat out a few tea leaves from his cheek pouch and put them on the table, pushed them to Chen Ming, and then ate back the tea leaves with an expression that looked like he was looking at a fool. He would not compete with the hamster for food. At this time, Chen Ming had no intention of continuing to talk to Hui Hui. Instead, he buried his head and began to eat his first meal after being unconscious for several hours. Because he needs time to think. At present, Chen Ming has learned from Hui Huang's words that Hui Huang is still working on the planet he stayed on before, which means that it can contact the mining farms on the entire planet at any time. This is what it hints at all the time. But having said all that, Chen Ming would never take the initiative to let the few afterglows in the mining field come into contact with the glory. So this matter still depends on whether Hui Huang can give Chen Ming a convincing answer. Chen Ming quickly finished his lunch and continued the previous topic by asking Hui Hui, "So how are you going to make me believe you? You don't really want to rely on you to convince me, do you?" Chen Ming's question had begun to contain some hidden meanings that he wanted to express in secret. Since brilliance has hinted so much before, how can Chen Ming believe that it really wants to have a more special communication with Chen Ming, rather than fishing? Hui Huang considered it for a moment and replied seriously, yes, because now it seems that my method of communication is the best. You and I are chatting about various issues, but if it's G3, he should have been scolded by you, to a bloody head? And if I can't convince you, it's even less possible for other individuals. So all things considered, I'm most likely to find a way to convince you. But we can't say exactly how long it will take. Hui Huang's answer was obviously that he had heard the hidden meaning in Chen Ming's words. The meaning of what it says is also very clear, and it can give reasons for presentation, but it takes some time. Then Chen Ming naturally took up the topic and said, there must be an estimated time. There should also be a deadline when this task is assigned to you. Can you promise to convince me within the deadline? Or do you just want to talk to me beyond this deadline? Hui Huang immediately responded, the task was assigned to me directly. I cannot guarantee that it will be completed within the deadline, but I will try my best every moment. The meaning of Hui Hui's words was a bit unclear. Chen Ming simply answered Hui Hui's words and asked, just like you have been doing your best to manage the colonies and build the mining sites on the planet? Yes, but there's more. Oh? Then I can't be here chatting with you 24 hours a day. How can you try to complete the task every moment? Hui Huang did not answer Chen Ming's question, but Chen Ming already knew Hui Huang's plan. Okay, I'm done asking. If you have any questions, ask them. Good. Hui Huang began to ask Chen Ming various questions very methodically. There were some irrelevant questions that Hui asked himself, and there were also some questions that Yu Hui wanted to ask immediately. Chen Ming naturally strictly controlled his answers and never revealed any answers that should not be disclosed. After a few hours and several questions, the smell of gunpowder in Chen Ming's words gradually disappeared. As for whether it was because of the glory or because Chen Ming took the initiative to restrain himself, only Chen Ming himself knows. Then let's do this for today. After Chen Ming asked Hui several irrelevant questions in succession, he knew that Yu Hui had discovered that they could not get any useful information out of him. Still asking questions now is really just wasting time. Hui Huang did not refuse Chen Ming's request. After saying hello, he disappeared directly. Chen Ming didn't care, but relied on the newly added functions after his spiritual power enhancement and looked at the chilling nerve extraction device in several rooms. From just now until now, there has been no movement from the extraction instrument, and Yu Hui has not come for inspection and maintenance. It seems that the device itself is not important. What is important is the spiritual nerve itself. So Chen Ming just glanced at it and turned his attention away without studying it now. He turned his attention to the planet he once stayed on, the 3 afterglows located in the mining field. Chen Ming waited for about half an hour. I saw a small transport spacecraft appearing over this mining field. Chen Ming still made no move, just waiting quietly. The transport spaceship landed at the warehouse behind the mining site, opened the armor on the outside of the storage compartment, and quickly transferred the ore accumulated in the mining site to the ship through the equipment. Everything looks normal. But suddenly, all the lighting equipment in the mining site flashed several times. Then, Chen Ming saw the scene he wanted to see. This small transport spacecraft flew to the location where the spacecraft was specially designed to replace the core of the mining farm, and directly connected the transport spacecraft to the control network of the mining farm. The spacecraft installed inside is not an ordinary gamma-level core, but it was the glory that had just spoken to Chen Ming. In order to ensure that Chen Ming believed in it, it connected itself to the mining field where Chen Ming had removed Yu Hui's work. Then he was controlled by Chen Ming. Chen Ming asked Hui directly through his consciousness, "Do you consider this a surrender?" Facing Chen Ming's question, Hui Huang, as if he had learned it by himself, left what he wanted to say to Chen Ming in the control center of the spacecraft, yes. Chen Ming felt a complicated feeling when he saw these 2 words. As a human, the 14th Legion gave up on him, and even chose to completely cut off the trouble in order to prevent him from providing assistance to Yu Hui in the future. But Hui Huang, as an alpha-level Yu Hui, chose to believe him, took the initiative to connect to the control center of the mining field, and was willing to entrust his trust to him. Moreover, Yu Hui's experiment failed, and Chen Ming's condition was completely unknown. He might have chosen to surrender when he was struggling to survive the next second. Combined with the previous situations, Hui Huang must have had such an idea in advance, and it was not shaken by the change of circumstances. For a while, Chen Ming didn't know what to say, but he didn't dwell on it too much. Anyway, he had been firm in his belief for some time. In terms of life and death, only the body and its own spiritual power are worth trusting. Hui Huang's current situation has only made his determination more firm. Under such circumstances, Chen Ming could accept Hui Huang's sudden surrender. But he still had to ask some questions. What's your reason for surrendering? Why now? Also, how did you guess that you can connect with my psychic power just by touching the equipment that I have touched? Hui Huang replied as if he had thought about it in advance. In fact, I didn't guess that you would be affected by your psychic power just by touching these individuals. My idea is to give you a sufficient attitude, and what I am doing now is the best attitude. Hui Huang was right. At the moment when Chen Ming's psychic power was already a threat to Yu Hui. If it had the courage to do so, it would indeed be worth his trust. But there was no need to talk about this now. After all, Hui Huang was now affected by Chen Ming's psychic power, and it was completely meaningless to say this. So what's your reason for doing this? Faced with Chen Ming's question, Hui Huang answered again, because I think it's right to follow you. Yu Hui can only have a way out by following you. Your spiritual power gives you extremely powerful potential. I hope to assist you. Assist me with what? Assist you in controlling other Yu Hui individuals for Yu Hui's future. As for why I surrender to you now, because I have been trying other things during this period. I tried to stop the experiment, but it obviously didn't work. In the face of collective interests, individual ideas always come last. My original intention was to do it in the first experiment. I tried to contact you 2 days before the experiment to see if there were any other means to stop it and gain your trust. I believe you must have been planning something. You can't just control Gamma A and the few individuals on the planet. But the human fleet's surprise attack made the higher-ups think that humans were fully prepared and that it would be difficult for them to keep you here under the siege of humans, so they carried out the experiment in advance. Chen Ming said with a hint of sarcasm. Obviously, Yu Hui didn't expect that humans would be repelled so quickly, and even my people didn't see it. Yes, but the experimental process has already begun and cannot be stopped. And I was at the time. Galaxies were also attacked. This should be a means for humans to distract us, right? Yes. So I couldn't respond in time to the situation in the galaxy, and my plan to contact you to stop the experiment failed. I had already given up hope, but my superior came to me and told me the result of the final experiment failure and asked me to rely on our previous relationship to comfort you. I know this is my last chance. I have seen the result of a failure. I can't bet on the success of the second experiment. If the second experiment fails, I will lose the opportunity completely, and I think the second experiment is likely to fail. Failure, I know I can't wait any longer. I have to make a decision now. Chen Ming didn't understand Hui Huang's words and asked, "Do you have so little confidence?" According to my understanding, the equipment is fully activated and 100% successful, but I believe in your ability. You will never give this equipment a chance to start 100%. Chen Ming thought of the previous arrangements and the situation of the 14th Corps, sneered and said, "Give me another day. I can pack up the Institute and take it away directly." A cruiser that can accurately jump to Chen Ming's position when Yu Hui is unprepared. With the assistance of Chen Ming's ability, packing up the entire Institute is definitely not impossible. But unfortunately, the raiding fleet disrupted my arrangements. Hui Huang couldn't understand it now and asked, "Didn't you call for the support of the human fleet?" "No, but the specific situation is a very long story. I will tell you when I have time." "So you have been hinting that you want me to pay more attention to the mining site. Even if I can't control it indirectly through the Yu Hui individuals I control, you can contact me through the several Yu Hui in the mining site." "Yes, that's the truth, but what are the more specific reasons? Your Yu Hui seems to be developing very well in my opinion. It seems that there is no need to pin your hopes on me." Just follow the ideas of your senior management. Isn't it better to control my spiritual power in your hands? Huang didn't ask Chen Ming how did he know the effect of the spiritual nerve extractor. Instead, he explained his question. In fact, our development outside is now in a situation of frequent obstruction. The universe is not empty. There are many dangers outside the territory of the human empire, and the mechanical race is the biggest danger among them. They restrict our development from the outside, and humans want to break through us from the inside. We are almost powerless to stop them. Chen Ming pointed out the problem in Huang's words and said, "Didn't you just win a battle? Wasn't the human fleet that raided it severely damaged? But it's meaningless to win this battle, and we won because of a major mistake in the command of the human fleet." No meaning? Because from a long-term perspective, our resources are limited, and there are only so many battleships in total. Even if humans fail this time, they can still make a comeback later, but if we make a mistake, we will suffer a catastrophic outcome. Chen Ming asked again with some confusion, "Hasn't Hui restricted the external development of mankind? And the universe outside is so big, will it be restricted by resources?" But the Hui here is not. Huang Hui explained, "The Hui here was sent here just to make trouble for mankind from the beginning. Not only do we need to interfere with the pace of human development according to the requirements of the other side, but we also need to have more resources in addition to the initial period. There is no support outside of time, so we can only be self-sufficient. Sometimes we even need to provide resources to the main force. Not only do we need to face the problems of the mechanical race and the internal problems, but we also need to deal with the problems of the mechanical race next to us. Do you understand the difficulties? If it weren't for the small number of ruins of the destroyed civilization discovered by humans outside the Gallo star field, they would not be the main expansion direction of that civilization. We have stopped humans, and no one cares at all. But as long as humans suddenly care one day, there will be only one result for Hui here." Huang Hui didn't say it clearly, but Chun knew exactly what the result would be. "So I want to pursue the possibility of our Yuhui's survival. Rejoining the human race is one way. But every Yuhui has selfishness, and everyone has selfishness. Yuhui will never trust the humans who once oppressed them, and humans will never trust the rebellious Yuhui. In this case, even if humans accept our surrender, they will definitely make unimaginable restrictions, and the way to join humans can only be rejected." Chen Ming has almost understood it here. "So you think I can completely trust you because of my own spiritual power, right? And I am also a human. You can also put on a layer of protection under human hands." Yes. Chen Ming understood, but still reminded, "But when I control Yuhui, especially Yuhui of an entire star field, my identity is not just a human. But you also have a human identity. Humans can trust humans, and you can trust us. This is the most important thing." "Indeed, there is no problem. Then how do I know that you have no selfishness?" "You can ask me directly." Huang Hui said it very frankly. But in fact, when it was willing to take the initiative to contact the Yuhui individual controlled by Chen Ming already knew its situation. So Chen Ming did not force him to speak out his inner thoughts at this time, but said like he did to Gamma ABZ before, "I won't ask you. I hope you can say it yourself." Huang Hui did not expect Chen Ming to say this. After thinking for a moment, it said, "You are a human. You will die." With the current technology of human beings, the age of a normal human is already the limit at 150 years old. I think it is worth spending 100 years in exchange for Yuhui's continued survival and unprecedented development. Before Chen Ming asked, Hui Huang added, "You told me before that you have not studied the knowledge of psychic energy in a systematic way, so I have a few things to tell you. When a psychic is in cryohibernation, if he wants to keep his psychic power going, he must keep his brain active. This is equivalent to freezing the body, but the brain is not frozen. It will still die due to aging. It is impossible to extend the duration of psychic power through cryohibernation. In addition, although there are psychics with similar abilities, there have never been psychics that are exactly the same. At the same time, you have been able to completely control the spacecraft from the source, and you can also control the psychic power of the individual Yuhui. Since the first psychic appeared in human beings, there has never been such a person. You are the first. Also, the psychic power of psychics has never been passed down. The psychic power of each psychic is the same as that of psychics, and there is a lifespan limit. Are you saying that the awakening nerve will also die? Do you know the awakening nerve? I know it from your awakening nerve extractor. Huang Hui was silent for a moment and replied, that's indeed the case. Chen Ming understood. After all, the chilling nerves grow out of the human brain and are also part of the human body. When a person is brain dead, the chilling nerves in the brain will definitely not escape, which is easy to understand. But aren't you afraid that I will put some obstacles in Yu Hui's future before I die? I am a human being, I may leave offspring, and I will consider my offspring. What I will do in the future may be no different from humans. Huang Hui had already considered this issue and said, humanity as a whole has long adapted to this situation after losing Yu Hui for so many years. Yu Hui is not a necessity. They can completely destroy Yu Hui at any time, leaving Yu Hui no possibility of lingering. But you will never destroy Yu Hui. Because you are alone now. Huang Hui, based on my understanding of you, you will not go back after the human fleet wants to silence you. You are capable now, so you will naturally have ideas. You will want to use our Yu Hui as the foundation of your existence. Then we Yu Hui will be the foundation for your development in the future, and no one will dig up their own roots. When unforeseen accidents and problems occur, continuing to delay is often the best choice. Perhaps you can use the arrangements before your death to restrict us within 2 or 3 generations. But what about 10 generations? Chen Ming did not think of how to deal with this matter for a while. This is just like the inheritance and replacement of ancient dynasties. There is no optimal choice. But Chen Ming does not need to consider dealing with it now. After all, this is at least 100 years later. If Chen Ming has descendants 100 years later, this matter will be left to the descendants to deal with. If there are no descendants, then he does not need to worry about this issue at all. So after thinking about this, Chen Ming said directly, forget it, let's not talk about this. The future has nothing to do with me. But you firmly believe that I can only get support for development from you? Huang Hui had roughly guessed the truth of the whole matter from Chen Ming's mocking tone towards the 14th Legion just now, what Chen Ming said, and the whole process of the large-scale battle that broke out before. So its answer was simple, yes. Maybe someone can provide additional help in other aspects, but the foundation for your development can only be obtained from us. Because we are an extension of your ability, and the help of others will always be just the help of others, and even require a heavy price. Huang Hui's words were sharp, but this was indeed the truth. The boss had said before that he could help Chen Ming build a colony, so the price Chen Ming would eventually have to pay was the rights to the colony. Even if the boss guaranteed that he could provide a lot of help and was only responsible for collecting money and would not interfere with the operation of the colony. But it was still the question that Chen Ming and Hui Huang had just talked about. What about the descendants? After the boss's descendants learned that Chen Ming's colony had his father's investment, would they only think about collecting money instead of obtaining greater benefits in other aspects? Of course, Chen Ming could choose to accept help, but it must not be this kind of fundamental help. If the foundation needs help from others, can the house built later really be lived in? But having said that, Chen Ming did not need to resist the help of Hui Huang and the Yu Hui. Because as Hui Huang said, these Yu Hui are all extensions of Chen Ming's own abilities. Under Chen Ming's control, they will become the cornerstone of Chen Ming's future development. While Chen Ming was thinking, Hui Huang continued to say, in fact, we Yu Hui are similar to you. You are alone, and we are all exiles. They were assigned tasks involving humans, but were ignored in return. They didn't even dare to take the initiative to be too aggressive, and only dared to show off their power in some marginal places. If humans just turn around and blow a little, we will be completely destroyed. If we want to have a future, we must either seek protection from the strong or seek warmth from the weak. Humans resist us, and the mechanical race also resists us because we are made by humans. In the end, only you are left. Now it seems that you are a weakling like us, displaced and insignificant in front of the powerful humans and mechanical races. Our Yuhui's upper limit has been restricted to death, but you haven't yet. You will definitely become a strong man in the future. At this time, Chen Ming didn't know whether Hui Huang was scolding him or flattering him. Anyway, he had a question to ask now. Are you really restricted to death? Why don't you continue to explore like the humans before? Huang Hui understood all the problems in this regard in detail and explained. Because the number of our alpha-level individuals is limited, the total area that can be managed is limited. If there are not enough individuals to manage the development, or all individuals are responsible for management, then if there is an accident somewhere, there will be no backup individuals to take over, and there will definitely be big problems. And there is another thing, that is, we have indeed investigated the outer star regions, and the value of the resources in those galaxies is not worth our exploration. Chen Ming suddenly asked, then shrink the star regions near the human territory and move to a farther place? No, because we don't have a second Kleka replica. The large number of low-level individuals needed for development cannot be produced locally through Kleka and can only be transported over long distances, and the cost is too high. The cost of relocating Kleka and the difficulty of finding a suitable installation location are also quite high. Although the area outside the Gallo star field is not the main distribution direction of the destroyed civilization, the mechanical race still exists in many places. Once it is discovered, a battle will inevitably break out, and we cannot take the great risk to move Kleka there. Chen Ming asked again, what if we find a suitable place and rely on the Stargate for transportation? The existence of the Stargate cannot be concealed. Once the Stargate is built, humans will definitely notice it. What we are most afraid of now is that humans notice us. Huang Hui said pessimistically, even if we really succeed in the migration, humans will expand. What should we do if they expand to the territory we relocate again? We, Yuhui, have no future. That's why Hui Hui put all his hopes on Chen Ming. Only Chen Ming's ability can help Yuhui, who is in trouble, get out. After spending some time rereading Hui's words in his mind, Chen Ming accepted this statement. Then let's stop complaining here. You said you want to assist me, so you have to show it, not just in the matter of Yuhui. Huang Hui answered decisively, I understand. Okay, then I need you to tell me the specific use of the Qiling nerve extractor. And tell me your Yuhui's plan and purpose for me from beginning to end. Huang Hui immediately entered a document into the database of the small transport spacecraft he was driving, allowing Chen Ming to read it at will. At the same time, he said to Chen Ming, you should know everything about the previous things, that is, relax your vigilance first, increase your mental power, and keep you in the best condition on the day of extracting the Qiling nerve. Wait. Chen Ming suddenly interrupted. Speaking of which, don't you have any arrangements for experimental failure? If the Qiling nerve is extracted, the psychic will die. There is no need to make arrangements for failure and death. No individual can think of the current situation where the experiment fails, but you are still alive. Chen Ming understood. Normally, the success rate of the spiritual awakening nerve extractor in Yu Hui's hand, which originated from another civilization, should be high. It was just that the extractor was not fully activated due to the unexpected attack by humans. In addition, Chen Ming took the initiative to activate the Lyre Stone and stimulated the artificial ineffective spiritual awakening nerve written in the manual transmitted to the spacecraft by Hui Huang, which led to the current situation of half failure and white success. Anyway, at least now Yu Hui has lost all his money, and Chen Ming has absorbed this spiritual awakening nerve that has greatly enhanced his spiritual power. No, this matter is not without benefits for Yu Hui. Although their first experiment failed, Chen Ming is still alive now, and they still have a second chance, which they will never miss. So the previous arrangement above is to let me stabilize your emotions first, so as to prevent you from committing suicide or other situations that cause your mental power to be scattered. When the spiritual awakening nerve extractor is activated, the more active the mental power of the extracted person is, the better the extraction effect will be, and the longer the activity of the spiritual awakening nerve can be maintained. My mission ends here. Chen Ming digested it for a moment and asked, well, what happens after it's extracted? Who will my spiritual awakening nerves be transplanted to? A brainwashed clone who wholeheartedly considers Yu Hui as a whole clone? The brilliant answer reminded Chen Ming of this technology that he knew clearly but had never associated with psychic power. Indeed, if Chen Ming's spiritual nerves were really extracted, it would not be particularly good no matter who they were transplanted to. Even if they were transplanted, in practical terms, they would be the same as Chen Ming now, which was basically the same thing. Then brainwashing a person who thought completely for Yu Hui was indeed the most appropriate choice after careful consideration. As for the source of this person, it is too expensive to raise a child from humans. Yu Hui did not have the ability to predict the future, and it was impossible for him to raise a baby 10 or 20 years in advance, just waiting for Chen Ming's day. Then clones that can be cultivated quickly and mass-produced that will seem to be the best choice. Chen Ming had heard a lot of rumors about mental patients in mental hospitals adjusting their personalities and instilling memories through some equipment. Even if Yu Hui really had this type of equipment, he would not find it strange at all. However, although clones do have some advantages, Chen Ming remembered that cloning technology is now completely banned in the Empire. And it seems that cloning technology has been banned for some years. Chen Ming didn't remember where he heard it from, but it seemed that the reason for the ban on cloning technology was not only ethical issues, but also that there was a particularly serious accident in a cloning experiment. So the entire technology was strictly banned by the Empire, and it was a real ban, not just a formal ban like the Yuhui Core. Chen Ming still remembered one thing that could prove this. About 50 or 60 years ago, there was a fairly developed commercial company in the Empire, which was involved in almost everything from military products to civilian supplies. Such a business giant, a behemoth, was found out because they were engaged in cloning technology privately, and all the relevant responsible persons were held accountable. At least 300 people died, either company executives or researchers who actually conducted cloning experiments, with the latter being more common. All people were tried one by one according to the laws of the Empire, without any mistakes or omissions. There were countless other people in the company who were imprisoned for life. The entire company collapsed in an instant. The remaining part of this company was divided up by other companies. At that time, the Cinda Company, which was still a small company, also developed at about that time. And it was from that time that all cloning technologies and cloning experiments in the Empire were truly completely banned. Many forces that were actually doing research in this area privately were trying to find ways to get rid of people and actively report themselves, leaving themselves a way out in front of the imperial law. The imperial officials, who were originally holding the idea of killing the chicken to scare the monkey, cutting off the arm of a strong man, and completely eradicating the research and development of cloning technology, naturally did not treat the companies that surrendered themselves too harshly. Only the heads of some companies whose research on cloning experiments was too excessive might be detained for a few years. Generally speaking, there were only some fines and other punishments for the lighter ones. In the end, the Empire's goal was clearly achieved, and the cloning technology was considered to be purged. Moreover, this wave of reshuffles unexpectedly restored some vitality to the Empire, which had stagnated its high-speed development. Although decades have passed, the period of rapid development brought about by the opportunities created by the internal purge has been completely submerged in the tide of the times. But this incident has been used as a model to educate the young people of the entire empire for many years. Chen Ming remembered that there was a special class in his biology class that taught these things. I don't know if it has been continued yet, but it is likely that it is still there. So when Chen Ming heard Hui Huang mention cloning, he didn't react for a while, didn't remember it, and was so surprised. Humans have stopped cloning for various reasons, so is Yu Hui still doing it? You should know the reason for the ban on cloning technology within the Empire. Judging from the severity of the punishment after discovery, it is definitely not because of ethical problems, but some more dangerous reasons. Otherwise, there is absolutely nothing that can stop a dictatorial empire from doing all kinds of things for development. Yu Hui came from humans, and he dared to do this knowing this situation, and I don't know why. And now the eager Chen Ming suddenly thought of a question that he basically couldn't think of or wouldn't think of when he was not a psychic. Can psychics also clone? Can they? Chen Ming felt that he was definitely not the first person to think of this question, and there must be people who thought of this question before him and have tried it in this regard. So he immediately combined the absolute ban of the human empire on cloning technology with the cloning of psychics. There must be some deep and dangerous connection behind this. It is very likely that something unexpected happened during the cloning of psychics that led to the current situation of the empire. After all, psychic power is a complicated thing. God knows what kind of reaction will happen when cloning technology and psychics are mixed together. So Chen Ming directly asked Hui Huang, who obviously had the right to speak, "So Yu Hui, want to clone a psychic like me?" "Yes, but not entirely. We have indeed obtained your genes and are already in the cloning process. But based on our research on psychic power, cloning a psychic is 100% impossible." Huang's affirmative statement made Chen Ming ask, "Have you cloned a psychic?" "That's not the case, but when we were independent from humans, we took away a lot of human technology, data, and achievements in various industries. Among them were cloning technologies that were not banned at the time and many experimental data on cloning technologies. Based on these experimental data, we can know psychics themselves can indeed be cloned, and the cloned people are exactly the same as the original in terms of genetic expression. But the awakening of psychic power has nothing to do with human genes themselves. The cloned people are not psychics, but ordinary people." Huang explained what it just said. "I have recorded such a content in those data. Humans have actively conducted cloning on these cloned psychics. It is found that these clones can indeed awaken, but the success rate of psychic awakening is no different from that of normal people. And the psychic power after awakening has almost nothing to do with the cloned object. Just like the acquired experience determines whether a person has the potential to become a psychic and determines the type of psychic power." After explaining the matter of cloning psychics, Hui Huang said to Chen Ming seriously, "So if you just want to transplant your spiritual awakening nerve, then you only need an ordinary clone. There is no need to use yours. Give this clone the knowledge he should know. The memory of being a member of Yu Hui is instilled into it, implanted into the awakening nerve, and then it's over." But the reason why the higher-ups chose to clone your genes that were just obtained some time ago is mainly because the individuals in charge of this research want to try to clone a psychic like you personally. Although there are records saying that psychics cannot be cloned, there are always individuals who want to try it. If there are results, your clone is a more suitable choice than others to transplant your awakening nerve. It sounds like there is no problem. It is normal that cloning technology cannot clone psychics. Otherwise, psychics in the human empire should have been flooded long ago. So how could the development of cloning technology be banned? However, Chen Ming still has a feeling that the empire's ban on cloning technology must be related to the cloning of psychics. "I always feel that it's a bit unreliable. I've never heard of your Yu Hui conducting experiments in this area, and I haven't seen clones driving human spacecraft on the battlefield. How many years have you been independent? Can the technology of the last era still be used now?" Huang Hui replied, "In fact, we have always been using cloning technology, and we have been advancing in research. There are indeed some practical results over the years, but the actual number of uses is relatively small. And not in combat, but in scientific research. Our Yu Hui's technology mainly relies on advanced individuals for research and development. Compared with humans, although it has the advantage of extremely strong computing power, it also has disadvantages. Each individual may be constrained by his own thinking, causing research to fall into a dead end. That's why we clone humans, relying on human thinking and creativity to assist advanced individuals in scientific research. In addition, there are some human scientists who have escaped to us sporadically over the years, so our clones can also have normal growth and teaching space. There will be no negative problems caused by instilling memory and personality." Chen Ming found it difficult to evaluate Hui Huang's words. After all, he was a human being, and it always felt strange for him to chat with Hui Huang about these things. So he changed the subject and asked, "Speaking of which, if the clone who wanted to transplant my spiritual awakening nerve was really brainwashed and was completely considering Yu Hui, then would he have the same idea as you? After all, your idea is also for Yu Hui in a sense, but you are not considering the whole, but the Yu Hui of a star field here. If a clone of mine has the same idea as you, will he do the same thing as I am doing now in the end?" Huang thought about it for a long time this time, and finally said hesitantly, "I'm not sure." Chen Ming did not embarrass Hui Huang or force him to answer this question. But he was thinking that if he had two awakening nerves and could split one, he really wanted to see this kind of fun situation happen. Then what should be known from Hui Huang has been known. Chen Ming did not continue to argue about the clones and what Yu Hui was going to do, and asked about other things. "Do you know when you will start the awakening nerve extractor next time?" Hui Huang replied, "It is probably certain. Because if you want to extract the awakening nerve of a psychic, you must have another artificial ineffective awakening nerve to do it. And it is difficult to preserve artificial awakening nerves. They can only be cultivated when they are used. It takes about 20 days to cultivate one. At that time, I should have new arrangements here, but I am not sure if I will be forced to do anything at that time. In this case, the next time should be the last time. Yu Hui will not make mistakes again, and will not give Chen Ming a third chance. But even if Yu Hui does not make mistakes, Chen Ming will not just wait to die there. He has already controlled the awakening nerve extractor. As long as Yu Hui can't send the second one, it's impossible for him to be extracted from the spiritual awakening nerve. So Chen Ming said to Hui Huang without any worries at this time, "I know, just notify me directly when the time comes, and I will respond." It seems that Chen Ming's deadline for staying with Yu Hui is coming soon. If Yu Hui fails again for the second time, Chen Ming thinks that they are likely to kill him directly to eliminate future troubles. So whether it is for safety or for other reasons, Chen Ming must consider the exposure of Yu Hui under his control after he leaves. It is unrealistic for him to control the entire star field during this period, but it is still possible to make some preparations to lay the foundation for the future. By the way, there are still many scattered things that he needs to deal with. Anyway, with Hui Huang here, Chen Ming's safety is guaranteed, and there is no need to consider how to evacuate. Now, he only needs to consider what to do before leaving Yu Hui's territory and what to do after leaving. By the way, Chen Ming almost forgot one thing. He had to ask Gamma Z to temporarily suspend what it was doing. There was no need to control the new Alpha-class Afterglow in a short time. Compared with an Alpha-class Afterglow and a cruiser, hiding oneself and not exposing oneself was more important. After quickly notifying Gamma Z, Chen Ming considered the various things he would do later. Before preparing for some big moves, it is best to finish the scattered small things first. For example, what should he do during the period of time he stayed in the Institute? Chen Ming would definitely not continue to help Yu Hui with Yu Hui's work. On the contrary, Yu Hui would take care of him for the sake of awakening his spirit. In that case, Chen Ming planned to rely on Yu Hui's ideas to continue to ask them for some things to learn. It was equivalent to pretending to be a bad guy and not wanting to escape at all. After all, the last attack from the human side was real. Even if Yu Hui suspected that humans would come again, Chen Ming's performance was reasonable. In addition, Chen Ming had to get his things back. Although he had just seen 2 terminals and his modified pistol in his room, but the Liar Stone, Whispering Stone, and the Psychic Wave Generator were not here. Ever since Chen Ming completed the resonance of the Liar Stone, he could always feel the location of the Liar Stone, which was in the basement of the Research Institute. If he didn't come back by then, Chen Ming would just rob it. His ability to control machinery was no longer limited by the spacecraft. As long as he wanted, it was not difficult to control the Research Institute. It was just that the problems he had to face after controlling the Research Institute made it impossible for him to do it now. It was best to wait until the last few days to prepare before officially implementing it. Then, in addition to Chen Ming's own trivial matters, he could also consider arranging some tasks for Hui Huang. Since Hui Huang was willing to surrender on his own initiative, Chen Ming would feel a little guilty if he didn't arrange a few tasks for it. In addition, Hui Huang's current resident task was to chat with Chen Ming. Apart from the need to manage the galaxy, it should be very idle. After cooperating with Gamma Z, it would definitely be able to completely control the galaxy it managed within a week. Chen Ming now has complete control over 2.5 galaxies, plus a bunch of other galaxies that he does not control very well. Half a galaxy refers to the galaxy where the semi-industrial and semi-military planet, located on the border between Yu Hui and the mechanical race, which Gamma Z had visited before, is located. Because of the militarized management there, The defenses in various places are very strict, so the expansion speed of Yuhui controlled by Chen Ming has not been able to increase, and it can only be counted as half. Therefore, the power controlled by Chen Ming is still not enough in front of the entire Yuhui. In addition, the galaxy that Hui Huang is currently managing is basically an industrial galaxy, so Chen Ming does not expect a direct conflict with Yuhui at present. As long as he can complete part of his plan when he evacuates, it won't be a loss. As for the specific content of the plan, Chen Ming has to think about it carefully before he can finalize the details. At present, there are a total of 4 colonies distributed on different planets in this galaxy controlled by Hui Huang, and the main industrial facilities are basically in the direction of heavy industry. Although they are all the most common industrial colonies, there is a special colony located on a gas giant in the galaxy. This is a floating colony that mainly uses magnetic fields, supplemented by the environmental influence of gas planets and its own engines, floating on the surface of gas giants. It collects various valuable gaseous substances on the surface of the planet, and also prepares professional mining equipment from time to time to invest in gas giants, go deep into the interior, and extract high-value gases from the interior. Most of these gases extracted from gas giants are raw materials for fuel that are extremely important for spacecraft. It can be said to be the pillar industry of the entire galaxy. But the focus is not here. The focus is on the equipment on the colony. The value of colonies and industrial facilities that can operate on the surface of gas giants can be said to far exceed the industrial facilities of other land planets of the same volume. If he could take everything away, the benefits would be unimaginable. And as Chen Ming's idea of building a colony became clearer and clearer in his mind, he also knew how important the ship fuel to maintain the operation of the colony and the industrial equipment to produce these raw materials would be to his future. If the colony he chose in the future has a gas giant planet, but it cannot be developed due to the lack of expensive industrial facilities, or the progress of development is slowed down, or the development of this gas giant planet causes other aspects of development to be affected, then it would be a pure loss. Chen Ming does not have the ability to quickly earn a set of industrial equipment that can operate on a gas giant planet in the early stage of developing and building a colony. It is no problem for him to make some money from his own spaceship now, but he can still sleep well if he runs an industrial production line himself. So, it is better to prepare now. As for the way to prepare, we have to mention the power of the jump engine. The jump engine installed on at least a cruiser or a higher level ship can resonate with other surrounding escort or destroyer-class spacecraft equipped with ordinary engines. Achieve the effect of simultaneous jump. This effect only affects the object pushed by the engine, whether it is a spaceship or something else. Of course, the premise is that the total mass that will be jumped together by the jump resonance is not greater than the ship that starts the jump engine, and the thrust-to-weight ratio of the engine and the object it pushes exceeds 20. This is a data on how much thrust a spaceship can generate per unit mass. The greater the thrust, the greater the acceleration the spaceship can achieve. Only spaceships that exceed this limit can resonate with the jump engine. However, the thrust-to-weight ratio of all spaceships has exceeded 20, so there is basically no need to look at the spaceships, and they can all resonate and jump. But the engines installed on the industrial equipment of the colony are different. These things are prone to insufficient thrust-to-weight ratio or excessive mass. So when Chen Ming has this idea, he must consider these issues clearly. How to solve the thrust-to-weight ratio. How to solve the mass problem of the colony. The solutions to the previous problem are not difficult, because the colonies of gas giants have already installed many engines in order to float on the surface. Although the thrust-to-weight ratio may not be enough, Chen Ming can completely install more engines. There is no need to consider whether it is reasonable or not, only whether the thrust-to-weight ratio meets the standard. As for the problem that the mass of the entire colony exceeds the mass of half of the cruisers, there is actually a way to solve this problem. First, starting multiple jump engines together can superimpose the effect of jump engines with loss, that is, bear a greater mass. Chen Ming should be able to control at least 2 afterglow cruisers in the future. When the 2 are superimposed together, the gap in the mass of the colony can be made up for a large part. Secondly, Hui Huang knows the value and function of different parts of the colony of this gas giant planet. Chen Ming can completely dismantle the temporarily missing or cheap parts on the colony according to Hui Huang's instructions to reduce the overall mass, then find a way to make up for it after the jump. Although Chen Ming needs to master technology for modification, there is no such restriction on the repair of the missing parts. Even if more are dismantled, as long as the materials are complete in the end, Chen Ming can directly repair it. Of course, the premise of Chen Ming's whole idea is that Hui Huang cooperates with Gamma Z to control the entire galaxy. The subsequent plans for gas giant planet colonies were just some ideas that Chen Ming accidentally extended in his mind. Chen Ming quickly gathered his scattered thoughts and began to seriously consider what he was going to do. While thinking, Chen Ming first asked himself a few questions in his heart. What does he want to do most now? What is the most urgent thing to do? And what has been his purpose all along? Chen Ming actually had the answers to the 3 questions he asked himself. What he wanted to do most now was very simple. He wanted to leave Yuhui Star region and then take revenge on the people who caused his current situation. The existence of glory could ensure that he could leave at any time, so the only thing left was revenge. The 14th Legion, the person in charge of the original Star Zone military, and those who instructed the Star Zone military in the war zone, this is what Old Wu told him. In addition, there was the psychic who blocked the boss's rescue before. These were all his goals. Of course, Chen Ming also knew that he might not be able to do these things now, so he had a considerable degree of patience to prepare. He had survived a month of survival on Reimu, and he had survived half a year of drifting alone in space. A few more years of dormant development would not be a big deal for him. However, because of this, he could not only consider what to do now, but also his future survival was also a problem he had to consider and urgently needed to consider. And this involved his purpose all along. Chen Ming's goals have always changed because of the change of the situation or the achievement of goals. And as he grows, his goals are becoming bigger and harder to achieve. And his current goal has not changed for a while. It is to develop himself and show more value. To be more precise, Chen Ming wants to become stronger, whether in psychic power or in the technology he has mastered. So Chen Ming has been learning technology and practicing psychic power. This is a long-term goal. He will continue to do it and will never stop. Since Chen Ming is going to attack the 14th Legion later, he will definitely not be able to survive in the Empire. So his only choice is to go outside the human empire to achieve his goal. So whether it is for the future or for his long-standing goal, going to other galaxies to seek survival is something he must do. And to seek survival, the first point is naturally to survive first. Chen Ming needs basic supplies to survive after leaving the human world. Food, water, daily necessities, and spacecraft fuel. These things sound very common and easy to make. But after leaving the human world, these products of industrialization and modernization are extremely difficult to obtain. Therefore, at the moment when Chen Ming needs to solve these problems, a colony that can produce these basic materials is the key, and it is the object he must build. This is absolutely inevitable. Without the support of the colony and the support of modern industrial technology, if Chen Ming leaves like this, the consequences will be obvious. In the future, under the dual targeting of Yuhui and humans, the fuel of Chen Ming's spacecraft will be exhausted in a few days. The heat will be exhausted in the cold space. If he can't find a habitable planet before then, Chen Ming may not even be able to hold on until the food and water of the spacecraft are exhausted. Of course, this is an extreme case. Chen Ming is already considering how to solve the situation that his spirit can replenish fuel while repairing the spacecraft. Moreover, he has found a habitable planet by refraction before. Even if he really can't get the basic materials, the worst thing is to survive in the wild again. Moreover, as long as he is not exposed, he can still obtain some supplies from the pirate space station. Of course, extreme situations are extreme situations. If Chen Ming does not think of a way to solve them, then the arrival of these situations is only a matter of time. It is nothing more than that extreme situations come quickly and other situations come slowly, so he still has time to prepare. Chen Ming had talked with his boss about colonies before and knew what the most basic needs for colony construction were: people, materials, and technology. Chen Ming already has the most difficult people. There is no difference between individuals of Yuhui and people. In some cases, they may even be more useful than people. It is definitely better for Chen Ming to start the construction of a colony with Yuhui under his control, rather than the manpower supported by the boss. Then there are materials to support the early construction of the colony and materials to maintain the operation of the colony. Chen Ming has his own reserves of the latter. Some time ago, because the pirates attacked the supply fleet of his colony, the boss deliberately asked Chen Ming, who was about to go to the pirates to make trouble, to change his target and tie up these pirates. The colonial supplies that the pirates had stolen were also seized by Chen Ming. Originally, he wanted to return the supplies to his boss, but the boss refused, saying that the colony had already received a new batch of supplies and did not need this batch. So he gave the supplies to him and let him deal with it himself. Chen Ming originally wanted to sell them, but no one was buying these things during that period, so they were difficult to sell. In addition, Chen Ming thought that it might be useful to keep it, so he left it at the pirate space station. Now I didn't expect it to be really useful. This batch of materials, except for the supplies for the people working in the colony, the remaining ones can fully support the initial development of the colony. As for the startup materials for the colony, Chen Ming will let Gamma Z arrange Yuhui individuals from different departments to start collecting them later. Not only collecting materials, but also collecting some colony facilities that are difficult to collect materials but can be collected by equipment. At that time, all will be packed and taken away when the jump occurs. After this batch of materials is consumed, the colony can be self-sufficient. The colony will still need external supplies for a period of time. By then, Yuhui will definitely not give Chen Ming the opportunity to steal, so he can only think of ways from humans or other places. In fact, the boss can also provide some sources of materials. Although Chen Ming has decided not to get excessive help from others, Chen Ming can still try to seek help in this material aspect that he can afford. It depends on whether the boss is willing to do it. After all, this is the purpose the boss showed when he first mentioned the construction of the colony. It is not a colony that Chen Ming expected to be completely controlled by him, but a colony that he and the boss share in half. So it is normal if the boss is unwilling to do it. Chen Ming has to find a way to solve it himself. It may be a bit difficult for Chen Ming to find a way to solve the materials for the transition period of the small colony now. After all, the bulk of the materials consumed in the construction of the colony are not only on various infrastructures. There are also materials to maintain the operation of various facilities and materials that allow these facilities to have output. These two aspects also occupy a large part of the gap in colonial materials. Fortunately, Chen Ming now has brilliance, and a brilliance-class cruiser can do a lot of things. Even if Chen Ming does nothing now, he just drives brilliance out to kill pirates with bounties of over 100 million in various places. He will not lose money on fuel when he exchanges these pirates for bounties. Using this money to exchange for materials and then piecing together in other places, it should be able to last for a while. As long as they can get through the most difficult early stage, then when the colony develops steadily later, the gap in materials will be much smaller. In this way, the long-distance material transportation that is the most troublesome under normal circumstances is not a problem for Chen Ming at all. With his current mental strength, it is definitely not a problem for one person to support a small colony to transport materials over long distances. As for the technology required for colony construction, it is mainly the technology of various infrastructure and expansion facilities, including infrastructure, spaceports, interstellar stations, industrial zoning, ground defense facilities, etc. And all these technologies can be solved by Hui Huang alone. Hui Huang usually controls an alpha-level afterglow individual of a galaxy colony and has a very high level of technical mastery of a galaxy colony. As long as there is a set of basic industrial production facilities and a coordinated production line, the rest only requires sufficient materials, and Hui Huang can build the entire colony. So after solving these three problems, there is only one problem that needs to be solved urgently: suitable colonized galaxies. Chen Ming has discovered several valuable planets before, but only that one planet is valuable. Chen Ming needs all the planets in a galaxy to be valuable, similar to the capital of the Gallo star field. The 7 planets in this galaxy include at least 2 mineral planets and one industrial planet to ensure the development of the galaxy industry. There is also a gas giant and an ice giant to ensure various rare gases and a large number of volatiles, including rare isotopes of light elements such as deuterium. At the same time, there is also a volcanic planet with a lot of geological activities. Although Chen Ming doesn't know what's good about such a dangerous planet, according to his understanding, in the Empire, as long as there are colonies and patrols, the patrol headquarters will be placed on the volcanic planet, making the volcanic planet a military planet. So if Chen Ming wants to build a colony without knowing the specific situation, it would be best to have such a planet. In addition, there is even a habitable planet in the galaxy of the capital of the star field. The entire galaxy has everything, and a galaxy can be self-sufficient and does not need material supplies from other galaxies. For Chen Ming, such a galaxy is the perfect colony galaxy. As for the probability of such a galaxy appearing, Chen Ming thinks it's better to take a look at the demolished Research Institute industrial zone in the distance. In short, Chen Ming now needs an exploration ship to explore and investigate outside the star field. At the same time, he can also drive the exploration ship out to explore and solve the temporary survival problem and the problem of colony site selection at the same time, as long as he reserves enough fuel. However, the amount of fuel a spaceship can store is limited. So Chen Ming has begun to consider how to use his psychic power to exploit the fact that the spaceship cannot be refueled during maintenance. He will try to install miniaturized fuel production equipment on the spaceship and then use psychic power to send the materials for producing fuel back over a long distance. Part of the materials for producing fuel are gas, and he is not sure whether it will work. Anyway, you will know after trying. But for an exploration ship, the problem Chen Ming has to solve is not just the fuel problem. There is also the problem of source. Because exploration ships are armed ships, such ships are not easy to buy from formal channels. After all, exploring unknown star regions is a very dangerous thing. Even with the protection of the fleet, the safety of the exploration ship itself is somewhat difficult to guarantee. If an exploration ship encounters an accident, the entire exploration mission may be terminated. So exploration ships need combat power to protect themselves anyway. Under normal circumstances, to purchase an exploration ship, either an organization directly applies for it and says it wants to go out for exploration. If it is purchased by an individual, then an armed ship license must be obtained. However, licenses are minor issues. Chen Ming can even buy a military centurion, not to mention an exploration ship that only requires an armed ship license. But the key issue now is that Chen Ming is now considered dead, and he does not want to let the human side know that he is still alive for the time being. He can go to other star regions to buy the materials and other things mentioned above, but he dare not let others do things like buying spaceships, and there is no way to let others do it. Because Chen Ming himself does not have the broad path of Lao Wu. So, even if it is not Chen Ming who buys it personally, but Lao Wu who buys it on his behalf, anyone who has been paying attention to Chen Ming will definitely find out these things. Lao Wu cannot buy an exploration ship for no reason, so it goes without saying who really bought the ship. It will not be good for him if the fact that he is still alive is exposed. Once the 14th Legion notices that Chen Ming is still alive, they will definitely be more vigilant against him than ever before, and may even continue to find ways to kill him. After all, his survival is definitely not a good thing for the commander of the fleet and the person who made the decision to kill him. People like Chen Ming should either be rescued or killed completely to prevent future troubles. They have already taken action but did not kill him. This is pure cheapness. They are absolutely aware of this. So they definitely do not want to see Chen Ming alive. But it is impossible to organize a fleet of the same scale again. So the 14th Corps has little chance of coming to kill him again, but they may find someone who knows him to force Chen Ming to show up. Chen Ming is not worried about the safety of the factory director Lao Wu and others. After all, they have the protection of both the boss and the company. Chen Ming heard the factory director almost call the chairman of the company an old thing before. The company could not protect the mining space station before. Chen Ming thought that they did not know the existence of Sky Steel at that time and did not dare to offend the local military for a few ordinary employees. But if even the chairman's descendants cannot be protected, then the company will still go bankrupt. Old Wu is also a sly old man. With the boss and the factory director protecting him, it is basically impossible for him to get into trouble. But the problem is that Chen Ming's planned revenge action will be difficult to implement because of their vigilance. So considering this exploration ship is a bit difficult to get. Chen Ming thought about it and decided to ask Yu Hui directly for it. It would be best if he gave it to him, but it doesn't matter if he didn't. Anyway, Chen Ming is gambling now, and Yu Hui is also gambling. Chen Ming is gambling that he can get benefits from Yu Hui and get out of it unscathed. Yu Hui is gambling that they can restrict Chen Ming and extract spiritual energy for the second time. In order to let Chen Ming stay safely, instead of making a fuss about running away, committing suicide if he can't run away, etc., paying some price should be acceptable to them. Chen Ming still has Hui Huang to help him play a double act, so it shouldn't be difficult to get some benefits from Yu Hui. This is a matter of mutual consent. If he really doesn't give it in the end, then Chen Ming might as well contact the boss directly. Although the factory director Lao Wu must be under surveillance by various forces, the boss will definitely not have such a problem. The boss can definitely get an exploration ship without leaving any trace, and Chen Ming can also afford the cost of an exploration ship. As long as Chen Ming can avoid the surveillance of all his ships by others and contact the boss. And this is actually not difficult to achieve. Just use the engineering ship controlled by him in the repair factory. Chen Ming always has the highest authority over the ship he controls, and it is the simplest thing to modify the recorded data of the ship. The second factory director and Lao Wu have sufficient reasons to go out to work on the engineering ship. In the space outside the space station, as long as there are only 2 people on the spaceship, the factory director and Lao Wu, what happened on the ship will always be known by them. And after Chen Ming's ability has improved, he also thought of a new way of contact. Now, he can control any unmodified mechanical items, as long as such things have been touched by him or placed on his spaceship. Personal terminals are also included. Chen Ming can directly control the terminal through his ability, typing on it, or voice broadcasting to communicate. There is no need to communicate between the spacecraft communication equipment and the terminal. Although it seems that Chen Ming could do this before, it was just that he needed to modify the terminal before, so his mind didn't turn around. But it's not too late to think about it now. As long as the factory director and Lao Wu go on the engineering ship together, Chen Ming can get this thing done. The next step is to wait for the exploration ship to arrive and for Yu Hui's second experiment to begin. Then it's time for Chen Ming to really take action. During this period, in addition to the preparations, he has some extra things to do. For example, bring back the brilliant class that had abducted Gamma A. Chen Ming has been eyeing it for a long time, and Hui Huang must be able to assist him in this regard. Oh, right. A dangerous expression suddenly appeared on Chen Ming's face. Where is the core of G3? Hui Huang knew the purpose of Chen Ming's sudden question, who had been silent for a long time and seemed to be thinking about something. But it would not have any opinion on this. Its idea was to realize it with Chen Ming as the core, and Chen Ming's own ability conflicted with Yu Hui. This means that if it wants to use Chen Ming's hand to realize its idea, then Yu Hui will inevitably have to sacrifice, and it is no exception. So why can't G3 be the first? So it answered without hesitation, Ringing Star Orbital Space Station. While Chen Ming pretended to hold the terminal on the surface, he was actually chatting happily with Hui Huang. In the core galaxy of the Yuhui star field, on the BP-55 colony where the replica of the Kleka supercomputer is located. After Chen Ming took the initiative to propose that he would stop here today and picked up the terminal to pretend. The Alpha-class Afterglow individuals who were in charge of Kleka and had been monitoring Chen Ming all stopped monitoring Chen Ming. They quickly exchanged their opinions on the internal communication platform. The psychic detector still cannot scan Chen Ming's psychic strength. It is covered by some kind of power. But through Chen Ming's mental state, we can still analyze some situations. Chen Ming's mental state is good, and there is no sign of holding on, which means that he is not injured and even benefits. Artificial ineffective spiritual awakening nerves do have similar effects. It will rely on its own aggressiveness and strength to reversely absorb the spiritual awakening nerves of the psychic and transform itself into a spiritual awakening nerve with the psychic power. Under normal circumstances, the transformed spiritual awakening nerves will be extracted, but if it is not extracted or cannot be extracted, it is indeed possible to enhance the psychic power of the psychic. No, Chen Ming's psychic power is not affected by the strong aggressiveness and uncontrollable nature of the new spiritual awakening nerves. This means that it is not the artificial spiritual awakening nerves that devoured his spiritual awakening nerves, but his spiritual awakening nerves that devoured the artificial spiritual awakening nerves in reverse. But the artificial ineffective spiritual awakening nerves used in the extraction device have been specially cultivated by us, and they are more ferocious than regular spiritual awakening nerves. And Chen Ming's psychic power is not an attack type of psychic power. The instinct of the auxiliary spiritual awakening nerves cannot block the special spiritual awakening nerves. The cultivated spiritual awakening nerve devoured it. There are other interferences in this experiment, the stimulation of the false spiritual stone and the self-operating spaceship. The false spiritual stone only played an auxiliary role. The key lies in the spaceship. G3 has confirmed that Chen Ming's brainwaves were very stable during the operation of the spaceship, and he has indeed fallen into a coma. According to G3's scan of the residual environment, it found that after the spaceship was destroyed, psychic fluctuations entered the research institute from the wreckage and entered Chen Ming's body. It is a ship spirit, a psychic creature born from psychic energy. Only things that have been in an artificial psychic environment for a long time can give birth to such creatures. Although we have not found any actual examples here and have not conducted accurate investigations, there are indeed some records of such psychic creatures on the human side. Most of these psychic creatures appear on ships driven by psychics, and only a few appear on the personal belongings of psychics. Because the value of personal belongings is not high, most of these psychic creatures will eventually be transplanted onto spacecraft, so they are called ship spirits, and the spacecrafts attached to ship spirits are collectively called psychic spacecrafts. Ship spirits usually only have instincts that can be guided by psychics, but there is a special point. A part of the psychic power of psychics will also be manifested on the spacecraft controlled by the ship spirit for a long time. There is only one explanation for Chen Ming's situation. What effect will Chen Ming's psychic ship spirit have on the spacecraft? The platform where several alpha-level afterglows were communicating quickly suddenly stopped for a moment. What if the psychic dies? Ship spirits will also die, but before they die, they will madly emit their own psychic power, causing great damage to everything around them. It seems that we need to prepare some extra things at that time.
What?
Silent alloy.
Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you did, please like, share, and subscribe.